Hey guys, thanks for coming back and joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning viewer, glad to have you back. If you're new, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. So, Salty Ginger Talk is a podcast for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. So, along those lines, today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. So, we're going to give you 21 tips that you can use to raise your emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence, what is it? What the hell am I talking about? So, we think it's a very underrated skill and it's something that you're going to need to be successful in life. You want to have a high, I've heard it called EQ, emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence, EI. So, emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your own emotions and understand the emotions of the people around you. So there's five key elements to EI. And by the way, we took this right off of like the American Psychology Association's website. So this is not our definition. This is kind of the psychological definition of emotional intelligence. So, one, self awareness. Two, self regulation. Three, motivation. Four, empathy. And five is social skills. So, self awareness, know who you are, know how you are acting right now, know how you're feeling right now, be in touch with those things. Two, self regulation, be able to regulate those things. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Don't blow up at people. Don't engage in petty arguments. Don't name call. Don't judge. Regulate your emotions so that you are an effective listener and an effective communicator. Motivation. What is your motivation? Why are you doing what you're doing? What's the motivation of the person you're interacting with? Why do they think the way they think? What experiences are making them think that way? That feeds right into empathy, which was number four. And then social skills. How do you engage with those people to help deliver the outcome that you're trying to deliver? So, emotional intelligence fuels your performance both in the workplace and in your personal life. But it always comes back to you. It always comes back to how you read and react to the situations that you're in. So, you can show confidence, you can show empathy, you can show optimism, you can demonstrate your social skills and your self-control. Understanding and managing your own emotions can accelerate your success in every area of your life. And look, this is a learned behavior for us because by nature we have a bad temper. We're quick witted, we're sarcastic, but we rarely those things out in public because they're not super useful. They don't deliver the type of life that we want. So we've learned over the years to employ the things we notice and employ the things that have worked for us in the past to deliver future outcomes that we're looking for. So it doesn't matter what field you're in. Doesn't matter if you have a team of 2 people, of 20 people, of 200 people, or even just to manage yourself. Realizing how effective you are at controlling your own emotional energy is a great starting point. And maybe you're not great at it. Maybe you need to improve on it. Maybe you need to figure out how not to, what I call, swing at pitches in the dirt. Don't fall for those petty goading arguments. Look, if people can control you with words, they can control you. Don't let words control you. Just because someone uses a word that you don't like, you don't have to react to it. You don't. Like, you just don't. That's what emotional intelligence is. It's being able to recognize that those are situations that you have struggled with in the past, but you develop coping mechanisms to allow you to maintain control of them in the future to get a better outcome that you're striving for. So, how well, put simply, emotional intelligence is how well individuals identify and manage their own emotions and react to the emotions of others. It's understanding how those emotions shape your thoughts and actions so that you can have greater control over your behavior and develop the skills to manage yourself more effectively. Becoming more emotionally conscious allows you to grow and gain a deeper understanding of who we are, enabling us to communicate better with others and build stronger relationships. Like, that sounds like what life is all about to me. Developing stronger relationships, personally, professionally, doesn't matter. Like, if you can relate with other people and get other people to listen to your point of view and support your point of view, it's going to go a long way to building the life that you want. So, with all that said, let's get into the 21 tips. What are these 21 tips that we're talking about? So, there are, what is that? 17 tips proactively, and then there's 4 things at the bottom that we want to avoid. So we'll talk through those now, so you have these tools in your toolkit. So number 1, practice observing how you feel. What situations trigger you? What words trigger you? What topics trigger you? How do you feel when X, Y, or Z happens? Knowing that can help you prepare for those things. I was talking to my wife, and I can't remember what the conversation was, but we were talking about like having to have an unfun conversation with somebody. And like, I'm the first person everybody calls when they have to have an unfun conversation with somebody. How would you approach this? How would you say this? Because I've developed skills and coping mechanisms over the years, or phrases over the years, that are non-confrontational, that are non-judgmental, that allow for these conversations to happen in the most productive way possible. But knowing how you feel, knowing what triggers you, knowing what sets you off, knowing what bothers you is super useful, because you can get ahead of it. You can prevent it from happening. And that's super important. Number 2, pay attention to how you behave. Do you get excited? Do you get nervous? Do you get angry? Do you get scared? How do you behave in certain situations? Again, knowing if that's your natural tendency, you can develop triggers, coping mechanisms, skills to change the behavior and deliver the behavior that you want. But if you don't pay attention to it, if you can't identify it, if you don't know it's a problem, it makes it really hard to deal with. So paying attention to how you behave, super important. Number 3, question your own opinions. Just because you think something doesn't mean you're right. Just because you think something doesn't mean that everyone should think the way you think. Question your own opinions. Maybe you're not right. Maybe you've thought about it all wrong. I could tell you, like on a subject like abortion. When I was a younger man, I was absolutely pro-choice. As I've gotten older, I've seen how the world works. I had 3 kids. I'm certainly still pro-choice mostly, but I think abortion is so first, you're killing a baby. Like, we can't have a conversation about it unless you're willing to be honest about what it does. It kills a human life. Like, it ends a human life. It just does. And I still think it should be legal in some instances, but it should be rare. It should be difficult. And we have way more abortions. We have about 1 million abortions a year in our country. That's way too many. And most of the abortions are performed on women who are 20 years or older and have a child already. So these aren't people that are new to the experience. This isn't a mistake that happens in the backseat of a car in general. And I don't think that we as a society want to condone that. That life has rights, and we should respect those rights in almost every instance. Again, I think there's times that should be, but that's my opinion, right? And my opinion has changed over time because I've been introspective and thought about it. I've questioned my own opinion on that particular topic. Next, take responsibility for your feelings. It's up to you to change those things. Nobody made you feel a certain way. Nobody made you react a certain way. That's up to you. You have control over that. You control what you say. You control how you feel. You have to develop coping mechanisms or skills or triggers to allow you to change your thought process when it's necessary, or even better, prevent that thought process from happening so you don't fall into those same traps that you've fallen into before. But you have to take responsibility for it. Terribly important. Take time to celebrate the positive. It's good when good things happen. You should say it out loud. You should acknowledge it. You should congratulate people. You should tell people you appreciate it. You should say those things out loud. It's good to notice the positive and celebrate the positive. But the next step is, don't ignore the negative. You can't run from a problem. You can't hide and pretend it'll go away, because it won't. It'll go away when you deal with it. So just because you celebrate the positive and notice the positive doesn't mean that you can't or you shouldn't notice the negative or the downsides, or that you should not acknowledge those. Like, it's important to acknowledge those so you can deal with them. But you can't deal with them if you won't pay attention to them, if you ignore them. Next, don't forget to breathe. We've talked about this a lot. When you're feeling stressed, one of the best things you can do to reset your mood, to reset your central nervous system, to reset your brain, is what we call a cleansing breath. Deep breath in through the nose, hold it for a second, exhale it through the mouth. I'm not a doctor. I don't know why it works. I'm just telling you, it resets your system. Don't hesitate to do those things. Even if you have to put a conference call on mute, even if you have to go off of a Zoom, pause the camera and do it real quickly. Step away from a conversation real quick to reset yourself. Don't forget to breathe. Next, learn to look at yourself objectively. So, not how you want to be viewed, but how you actually are. That can be a hard thing for some people. It's something I've never been super challenged with. I know kind of how I am. I know who I am. I'm direct. I'm straightforward to the point of being rude. I know how I am. And so I've learned that what I say is important, but it's not nearly as important as how I say it. Because I'm not good at lying to people. I'm not good at not telling the truth to people or calling things out when I see them. But I've learned that if you do it in a way that's non judgmental, that's non emotional, that's non confrontational, most of the time you can get people to listen to what you say. But I learned that by looking at myself objectively and saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to change who I am at my core, but I can change how I deliver the message. And I want the message to be received well. And that seems like where I should spend my time. So that's what I do. Acknowledge your emotional triggers. What sets you off? What is it that sets you off? Is it I don't even know lazy people? Is it people who are apathetic? Is it certain situations? What is it? Like maybe you don't like a sports team. Maybe that sets you off. Maybe you don't like a particular athlete or an entertainer or a politician. Maybe that sets you off. But you've got to recognize what those things are. We've seen it with politicians in the past. For some reason, there were lots of people that really hated. I don't understand it. For some reason, there's people that really hate Donald Trump. I don't understand that either. I get that they have their faults, but like to obsess over someone, I don't get it. But if that's an emotional trigger for you, you have to acknowledge it. You have to recognize it. You have to confront it because you can't deal with it and make it better if you don't confront it. So you have to acknowledge what your emotional triggers are. Eat well. Super important. If you're eating crappy food, you're not putting the nutrients in your body's not going to work right. That affects your brain function, that affects your central nervous system, that affects your cardiovascular system, it affects your respiratory system. The fuel you put in your body has a big impact on how your body reacts or works, including your mental outlook on life. So eat well, very important. Don't get mad. Like this one's so basic. And look, I'm preaching this is I live in a glass house on this one because I have a terrible temper. By nature, I have a terrible temper. You've heard me say it before. I'm Irish and I don't drink at all, so I fight twice as much to make up for it because us Irish people, we drink and we fight and we eat potatoes. That's what we do, right? So don't get mad. It's not useful. It's wasted energy. Once you're done being pissed, you're going to wind up right back where you are with the exact same set of circumstances in front of you, only you wasted a whole bunch of energy being mad. Or even worse, you made it worse by getting mad and saying something inflammatory or derogatory or judgmental or stupid. And now you've created a higher barrier to get over with whatever person or party that you're dealing with. So getting mad is wasted energy. You've got to eliminate it from your experience in life. Got to get rid of it. Next, remember it's your choice. It's your choice how you react. It's your choice what you say. It's your choice what you do. It's your choice to be in a bad mood. It's your choice to call someone a name, to engage in a petty argument, to do silly stuff. Like those are all choices. You choose those things. You have 100% control over those. You may not have control over the situation you're in. You may not have control over the things that are happening to you, but you have 100% control on how you react to them. It's your choice. So always remember that. Next, you got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to get out of your comfort zone. Almost no growth happens in your comfort zone. By definition, you're comfortable. Being comfortable is not how you make gains. You don't go to the gym and have a comfortable workout and get faster and get stronger. You go to the gym and be uncomfortable. Your mind works the same way. Put yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable. Get out of your comfort zone. I can tell you that our stores that we own grocery stores, south and west sides of Chicago. There's many times where I'm the only white person in a room. And I'm not uncomfortable in those situations, but it's less comfortable than being around my family, for example. So put yourself in those situations and learn how to deal with them. And that takes us to our next thing, which is listen. You don't have to say something all the time. You don't have to talk all the time. You don't have to respond to make people aware of how smart you are. Listen to people. Terribly important. It's a big sign of emotional intelligence when someone can listen without interrupting, without judging, without reacting, and truly hear what people are saying to them. So terribly important. Along with that, acknowledge what people are saying. You don't have to validate it. You don't have to agree with it. You have to acknowledge it. One of the ways I do that is to simply say, I think what I heard you say was, and then I'll repeat what I think I heard him say. A lot of times it's word for word what they said. And what I'm looking for them to say is, yes, that's right. Not you're right. Yes, that's right. And then I'll say something like, I appreciate you sharing your perspective. I find that very interesting. Will you say more? Both of those are ways to acknowledge that you heard what they said, make them feel like you're engaged in the conversation without agreeing, without validating. You don't have to agree or validate opinions or thoughts you disagree with to work with people. It's not necessary. What you do have to do is acknowledge that you hear what they're saying. Terribly important. And again, we've talked about this previously, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? So if there's a comedian and he says, you're a real son of a bitch, right? He just called someone a son of a bitch, but he did it in a joking way. That's very different than you're a son of a bitch, right? I just said exactly the same thing in two different ways. Those have very different connotations. And the way in which you say it, I think it's about 70%. A lot of studies have shown it's about 70% of communication is nonverbal. It's facial expressions, it's gestures, it's eyes, it's lots of different things other than just the words you say. It's the inflection of your voice. What you say is important, but how you say it is just as important, if not more important. So keep that in mind when you're trying to relate with people. And if you want to raise your emotional intelligence, it's not what you say, it's how you say it that's way more important. Now, we talked about at the beginning, there's 4 things you want to avoid. If you're a highly emotional, intelligent person, you will avoid these 4 things like the plague. And those things are drama. Drama is so unuseful. So my wife's dirty little secret is she likes to watch the Real Housewife shows. And those shows are built around drama. They're not for me. She doesn't buy into drama, but she likes the spectacle of it on TV. And look, I watch lots of stupid stuff. There's a lot of really sophomoric, dumb, juvenile things that I think are funny that I like. So I'm not judging. I'm not throwing stones. My trashy television habits are just different than her trashy television habits. But in real world, avoid drama like the plague. It is so counterproductive. Nothing good comes from it. It sucks away your time, sucks away your energy, sucks away your emotional capacity. Nothing good comes from drama. Avoid it like the plague. Simply refuse to get involved in it. You want to hear some gossip? No, I don't. See how I did that? No, I don't. Nope, I'm out. No thanks. Not for me. Avoid it. Let other people deal with it. You don't need to deal with it. Number 2 thing, complaining. Stop complaining. No one wants to hear it. Your world's not as bad as somebody else's world. Their problems are important to them. Your problems are important to you. Bitching about them out loud to a bunch of people isn't going to help. You can vent. Like my wife vents to me, I vent to my wife. You have to have an outlet for those things. Totally get it. We do those things behind closed doors. When I go out in the world, positive outlook, unemotional, non-judgmental. That's the way to be. Don't complain. Nobody wants to hear it. It's useless. It's counterproductive. Waste of energy. You're right back where you started when you were complaining. You could have been taking action to solve your problem instead of complaining about it. Just don't do it. It's that basic. Next, negativity. Oh my gosh, that is such a terrible thing. Now, I jokingly have a partner who looks at downside on everything, and he's a super smart guy. And I value his opinion highly because he's very bright and he does it in a very productive way. With that said, I will joke and say, the difference between you and a car battery is a car battery has a positive side. But he's super useful to have around because he always thinks of the downside. He's always a worst case scenario guy. And it's super useful to be ahead of those things, to plan for those things for if they come up. So that doesn't mean don't acknowledge problems. It doesn't mean don't think about what could go wrong. It means don't be negative. This sucks. I always hate it here. It's too hot. Blah, 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 blah. Like right now, it's November. And so when I go out in the morning, I'm out when the sun is up and it's cold. Like I don't complain about it being cold because I get the benefit of being outdoors. Sunlight's hitting my face. The wind is hitting my skin. I get to see nature. I get to walk my dog. I do all sorts of those things first thing in the morning when it's cold. I don't complain about the cold because there's so much more benefit I'm not going to be negative about those things. Being negative is not going to help you. And the last one, and this one's super important, dwelling on the past. Oh my God, it's so useless. You cannot unring the bell. You cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube. What has happened has happened. You're not going to be able to change it. What you can do is learn from it. And we talk about it a lot on this channel. There is no good or bad, there's only outcomes. You took actions and you received an outcome, or you delivered an outcome. If you like that outcome, keep taking those actions. If you don't like that outcome, take different actions. But dwelling on the past is so useless. It does you no good whatsoever. And look, I could fill 10 books with the stupid stuff I've done or said in the past. I have so many things in my past that I'm like, oh, God, what an idiot I was. Oh my gosh, I was so stupid. But I don't dwell on it. I learn from those things. I apply those learnings to future activities and situations, and I work on delivering the outcome that I'm looking to deliver. So you don't want to ignore the past, but you certainly don't want to dwell on it because it is super useless. Super useless. So, covered a whole bunch of ground there, guys. Emotional intelligence is super important. Understanding and controlling your emotions is one of the keys to success in life. It's rare that someone is so brilliant or has such a great idea they can overcome being a complete jerk or a complete baby or a complete whatever. Most people I know that are successful control their emotions, control how they interact with people, do those things in a productive way, develop strong relationships with a lot of people, and that helps them advance things forward. And they do that through having a high emotional intelligence in general. So, hope you found this helpful, guys. This is something that's super important to me. I think it's one of the keys to a healthy and productive life. And if you can master these things, if you can learn to incorporate these things in your day-to-day life, you're going to have a great life. I guarantee it. So James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to go to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. All of our social media links are there. And we have a newsletter that we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. Really appreciate you guys coming and checking out the channel, guys. Hope you found today's episode useful and productive. Everybody have a great week. We will see you next time.